Back in the very late 90s and the very early 2000s, Microsoft was making its rounds around the game industry in order to be able to pad out its upcoming Xbox game console's launch lineup. Microsoft approached Valve Software around the year 2000 in order for Valve to be able to create an exclusive title for the then upcoming Xbox game console. Quickly following the first couple of meetings and contract signings between Microsoft and Valve, Valve themselves put together a team of many industry veterans in order for Microsoft to be able to properly compete with the then console leaders Nintendo and Sony. The industry veterans were pulled from everywhere, some of them even working at Sega back in the heyday of the Genesis. And this team that Valve formed in-house came up with the idea for a 3D, third-person online cooperative platformer called Teebo Kai. This video was sponsored and made possible by dmarket.io. Interact with dmarket with both Steam items and dmarket blockchain items. Through dmarket.io, you can sell any Steam items for real-world cash or dmarket's own currency, which can then be used to buy any other item on the dmarket store. And if you just want to be able to get rid of, say, Counter-Strike items in particular, this is, period, the fastest way to be able to get some real-world money or some dmarket currency in order to be able to essentially trade for any other items on the market. Thank you very much for dmarket.io for sponsoring this video, and check them out with the link down below, so maybe they will provide for another video in the future. Public information on Teebo Kai is incredibly sparse, and one of the reasons why almost nobody talks about it is because, well, nobody talked about it back in the day. This entire project was done under wraps, and the entire purpose of it was to be able to best show the value of online play on a console space. Valve, up until this point, was an entirely PC developer, and online play is just something that was inherently known to the computer. And Valve really wanted to be able to push the value of online play for a different type of game, a 3D cartoon mascot-based platformer to compete with the likes of Mario and Crash Bandicoot. The team got to work, actually working within Half-Life 1's engine. The issue was, even though the Xbox was really pushing the online multiplayer, the marketplace really was not there for it. The majority of the people that were playing on PCs were college students or programmers or people that already had an internet connection. People that were playing on consoles, at least in the late 90s and early 2000s, had not really adopted a broadband connection and mostly had a landline. So Valve was worried that this title may not have an entire feature playable to the majority of the marketplace who purchases it. But development continued for 2 years, getting about 30% to completion. What happened was, about 2 years in, Gabe Newell walked into the office at Valve headquarters that this team was working in, canceled the project, fired the entire team, and decided that porting Team Fortress to the Xbox was a better option. A couple questions. Team Fortress never came out on the Xbox, and in fact, in my research for Teebo Kai, this idea of a Team Fortress for Xbox has been repeated by the majority of the people that I talked to, and the entire reason the Teebo Kai was canceled in the first place was to make way for this Xbox port of Team Fortress. Of course, the only official first-party game developed by Valve for the Xbox was Half-Life 2. The Counter-Strike port was contracted out. So there's actually evidence that points to the only reason the Half-Life 2 port on Xbox existing was because of previous contractual obligations for Valve to release something on the Xbox console in the first place, and because Teebo Kai fell through, because Gabe Newell felt as if it did not work anymore, and this supposedly unreleased Team Fortress Classic port never coming out, they just pushed the game they had out onto the console, and that likely is the only reason we have Half-Life 2 on the Xbox. But what happened? What happened to all the people that got fired in this 2-year development cycle that led to a game that was completely unheard of in the public space? Well, the team, after getting fired, formed together to create their own startup company called Escape Factory. And the publisher of the original Xbox title, which it then was going to be Sierra, assured this upstart Escape Factory that they could still work in the industry if they worked on a different title for them, being a third-person 3D cooperative platformer based around the Space Quest IP. If anybody is familiar with the canceled Xbox version of Space Quest, this is where it came from. The Escape Factory team develops Teebo Kai in-house at Valve. They then get fired by Gabe Newell, but want to be able to continue development on Teebo Kai as their own independent developers. Sierra allows it, but unfortunately, now that they do not work at Valve, Valve wants licensing fees for the Gold Source engine. They don't have that kind of money, and Sierra does not want to front it to them, so they then port development over to the Unreal Engine. And it's at this point that the whole Teebo Kai idea falls apart in favor of a recognizable brand provided by Sierra, being Space Quest. And there is a lot of information out there on this later canceled 3D third-person cooperative online platformer for Xbox based based around the Space Quest IP. In fact, there is actually video footage of this canceled game, and a lot of concepts, a lot of gameplay, a lot of level design was just straight ported over from Teebo Kai. And if you pay attention to the few screenshots that exist from Teebo Kai, and some of the screenshots that exist from the Space Quest game, well, they're interchangeable, and essentially, it's not possible to tell them apart without looking at the file names. Thanks for watching. While I have you here, if you're a new viewer that likes Nintendo, I have another channel called Nintendo News Network, which I am going to start uploading to more frequently. If you want to preemptively subscribe for some pretty interesting content I have coming out on that, link down below. And I'd also like to be able to thank my patrons, the names scrolling across your screen right now, and of course the E3 2013s, being my top tier patron supporters, have asked me to read you a few messages. I'll promise I'll buy my girl some ice cream after recording this video. I really appreciate the effort put into all of your videos. They seem professionally done. My personal favorites are the community catch-ups. Best of luck to you and Electra. I have been very disappointed in the amount of art I've been producing lately. That is to say none. Misinformation and incompetence are my two least favorite things, and I am grateful for VNN's commitment to defying and discussing both. Thanks for the support, patrons, and thanks for watching. Have a good day. Adios.